You're about to discover what 62-year-old Barbara Mitchell found hidden behind her daughter's perfect parenting and the 3 warning signs that could save a new mother from a prison she's building in around herself and her baby. Before you think this is just another anxious mom story, understand this. Jennifer was a successful attorney who never had anxiety issues until she gave birth 4 months ago. This isn't about helicopter parenting. What you're about to hear is about a medical condition disguised as motherly love. 3 months ago, Barbara visited her daughter Jennifer in Denver to help with her first grandchild. What she found, 47 bottles of hand sanitizer, a 4-month-old baby who had never touched the floor, and a daughter checking her baby's breathing every 20 minutes, shattered everything she thought she knew about motherhood. Here's why this matters now. Postpartum OCD strikes 1 in 20 mothers, often disguised as loving protection. By the time families recognize it, relationships are fractured and babies aren't developing normally. The window to help gets smaller every day. I'm Dr. Ellis Grant, family medicine physician with over 30 years treating mothers and families. This is Health SOS, where real people share real warnings that could save your family. Barbara's about to tell you exactly what she witnessed that October morning when she realized her daughter wasn't being protective. She was being held prisoner by her own mind. Welcome, Barbara. You're here because something happened during your visit to Denver that's been keeping you up at night. Tell me about Jennifer before the baby came.
Oh, Dr. Grant, Jennifer has always been my achiever, Straight A's through law school, made partner at 32, married a wonderful man. When she called to tell me she was pregnant, I was so proud. She said she'd been reading everything about baby care, taking classes, preparing like it was the most important case of her life.
And that preparation, did it seem normal to you?
Oh, absolutely. When I had Jennifer back in the early 90s, we didn't have all these resources. I thought it was wonderful that she was being so thorough. She had this whole nursery set up with everything organized by color, all the baby products researched and reviewed. I was thinking, this is how successful people become great mothers.
Barb, what you're describing as thorough preparation, and I want everyone listening to pay attention here, can sometimes be the first sign that anxiety is beginning to take control. But you didn't know that then.
No, I had no idea. So when I flew out to Denver in October, I was expecting to find that same organized, prepared daughter.
And did you?
At first, yeah, that's exactly what I saw. The house was spotless. Baby Emma was always clean and perfectly dressed. Jennifer had these systems for everything: feeding schedules, sleep schedules, even a chart for diaper changes. I was like, wow, she's really got this motherhood thing figured out.
Tell me about those first few days. What did a typical day look like?
Well, Jennifer would get up at 5 a.m. to sterilize bottles, even though she was breastfeeding. She said it was just in case. Then she'd spend about 10 minutes washing her hands before picking up Emma. I thought, well, that's good hygiene, with all the germs babies can catch these days.
10 minutes washing hands before picking up her own baby. Barb, for those of you listening who are new parents or grandparents, normal hand washing takes about 20 seconds. 10 minutes is a medical level scrub that surgeons do before operations.
I didn't think about it that way then. She had this beautiful routine where she'd change Emma's clothes twice a day, sometimes 3 times if there was even a tiny spot. And the way she'd arrange everything in the nursery. Every toy had its place, every blanket folded just so. I remember calling my sister and saying, "You should see how put together Jennifer is. She's everything we hoped our daughters would become."
You mentioned Emma was always perfectly dressed. Did you get to spend time with your granddaughter yourself?
Well, that's where things started feeling a little weird. Jennifer preferred to handle all of Emma's care herself. She said it kept Emma on a consistent routine, which made sense, I guess. But I'd offer to change a diaper or give a bottle, and Jennifer would get this look, not angry, but almost panicked. She'd say something like, "Oh, Mom, you don't need to worry about that. I've got it all under control."
How did that make you feel?
At first, I was actually proud, you know? Here's my daughter, completely devoted to her baby. Not like some new mothers who seem overwhelmed or eager to hand the baby off to anyone willing. Jennifer never seemed tired, never complained. She was handling everything like the competent woman I raised her to be.
But what looked like devotion was actually something else entirely. You said at first. What changed?
By day 3, I started noticing patterns, I guess. Jennifer would check on Emma during naps every 15 minutes. She said she was just making sure the baby was comfortable, adjusting blankets, checking temperature. And in the kitchen, she had this whole setup, different cutting boards for different foods, separate sponges for baby items versus regular dishes. I thought, wow, she's really taking food safety seriously.
Barb, I need to ask you something that might be difficult. Looking back now, how do you feel about calling those behaviors impressive and devoted?
That's what's been eating at me, doctor. At the time, I was bragging about her to anyone who'd listen. But now, I keep wondering if I was watching my daughter suffer and calling it success.
That realization that what we think we're seeing isn't always what's really happening, that's exactly why you're here today. Because what you discovered next would change everything you thought you knew about your daughter. Barb, you mentioned that by day 3, you were starting to notice patterns. What happened on day 4?
Day 4 was when everything changed for me. I woke up early, around 6 a.m., and I heard Jennifer in the kitchen. I went downstairs and found her reorganizing the entire pantry. She was wiping down every single jar and can with disinfectant wipes, then arranging them in these perfect rows. She'd been at it for over an hour.
How did she react when she saw you? Was there something in her body language that felt off?
She looked, I don't know, frantic, like I'd caught her doing something wrong. She said, "Oh, Mom, I'm just making sure everything's clean for Emma. You never know what kind of bacteria could be on these containers from the store." Then she went back to wiping the same jar she'd already cleaned 3 times.
So she was cleaning items that were already clean. What was your instinct telling you in that moment? Did you try to help or step back?
I offered to help, thinking maybe she was just, overwhelmed. But when I reached for a can, she grabbed my wrist, not hard but firm, and said, "Please don't. I have a system." That's when I noticed her hands. They were red and raw, like she'd been scrubbing them with steel wool.
Barb, raw hands from excessive washing is one of the physical signs we see in obsessive-compulsive behaviors. But you didn't know that then.
No, I didn't. I just thought she was being extra careful. So I went to make coffee and opened the cabinet under the sink to get a clean mug. That's when I found them.
Found what?
Hand sanitizer bottles, dozens of them, industrial-size pumps, travel bottles, different brands, some still in their packages. I started counting. Under the kitchen sink, there were 12 bottles. I thought it was odd, so I started looking around the house.
And what did you find?
47 bottles total. 47 in a 2-bedroom townhouse. There were 5 in the bathroom, 8 in the nursery, 6 in the living room, 4 in their bedroom, 3 in the laundry room. Some were hidden behind other things, like Jennifer was. I don't know, stockpiling them but didn't want anyone to see.
When families ask me what's normal versus concerning, I tell them this. 1 bottle per main area is careful parenting. 47 bottles is a compulsion. How did you feel making this discovery?
Scared, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I went to find Jennifer. She was in the nursery with Emma, and I watched her put the baby down for a nap. Except Emma never touched the crib mattress directly. Jennifer had created this elaborate system, a waterproof protector, then a fitted sheet, then a cotton blanket, then another sheet on top. And Emma was placed on the top sheet.
So the baby never had skin contact with anything that couldn't be immediately washed?
Exactly. And then Jennifer told me something that it made my blood run cold. She said, "Mom, Emma has never been on the floor, not once. I've been carrying her everywhere or keeping her in the bouncy seat. The floor is where all the germs live.
Barb, I need everyone listening to understand something. A 4-month-old baby should be spending time on clean floors, learning to roll, feeling different textures. What you're describing is a baby being kept in a sterile bubble that's actually harmful to her development.
That's when I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I said, "Honey, don't you think Emma needs to explore a little?" And Jennifer she broke down, started crying and said, "Mom, you don't understand. Every time I think about putting her down, I see all these terrible things that could happen. What if she touches something dirty? What if she gets sick? What if I'm not watching and something goes wrong?"
How long had she been having these thoughts?
She said since the day Emma was born. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw images of Emma getting hurt or sick. She was checking on the baby every 20 minutes during naps because she was terrified something would happen if she wasn't constantly watching.
Those intrusive thoughts, violent images about harming or losing a baby, affect up to 80% of new mothers. But when they become overwhelming and lead to compulsive behaviors, like what Jennifer was doing, we're looking at postpartum OCD. And here's what's crucial for anyone listening.
She made me promise not to tell her husband, Mark. She said if anyone knew she was having these thoughts, they'd think she was a bad mother or take Emma away from her.
That fear of judgment, that shame about these intrusive thoughts, it's exactly what keeps mothers suffering in silence. But what you witnessed next, Barb, was just the beginning of how severe this had become. Barb, let's step back and look at what you've described. Jennifer's raw hands from excessive washing, 47 bottles of sanitizer, intrusive thoughts about Emma getting hurt, and a baby who's never touched the floor. As a grandmother watching this, what was going through your mind?
I kept thinking, this isn't normal, but maybe it's just new mother anxiety. I didn't know what normal looked like anymore, you know? When I had Jennifer 30 years ago, we didn't have all this information about germs and safety. Maybe this was just how careful mothers were supposed to be now.
That's exactly the confusion many families face. Let me help you understand what you were actually witnessing. When a new mother has intrusive thoughts about harming her baby, thoughts she doesn't want and finds terrifying, and then develops repetitive behaviors to prevent those imagined harms, we call that postpartum obsessive-compulsive disorder. The 47 bottles, the constant hand washing, keeping Emma off the floor, these weren't signs of good parenting. They were compulsions.
Compulsions? You mean like she couldn't stop herself?
Exactly. Here's what happens in postpartum OCD. After delivery, a woman's estrogen and progesterone levels drop dramatically. We're talking about a 90% decrease within 48 hours. This massive hormonal shift can trigger changes in brain chemistry, particularly in areas that control anxiety and intrusive thoughts. For women who are predisposed, this creates a perfect storm where the brain starts generating unwanted, disturbing thoughts about the baby being harmed.
But she said she was seeing images of Emma getting hurt. That's scary.
It is scary for the mother experiencing it. These intrusive thoughts can be incredibly vivid. Images of dropping the baby, thoughts about accidentally hurting them, or fears about contamination and illness. The crucial thing to understand is that these thoughts are the opposite of the mother's true intentions. They're so disturbing precisely because they go against everything she wants for her child.
So when Jennifer said she couldn't put Emma down because she kept seeing terrible things happening,
She was describing classic obsessions, and the hand washing, the sanitizer bottles, keeping Emma elevated and contained. Those were her compulsions, the behaviors she felt compelled to do to make the scary thoughts go away. But here's the trap. Every time she performed these compulsions, it temporarily relieved her anxiety, which actually reinforced the obsessive cycle.
oh my God, so the more she cleaned and controlled everything, the more she felt like she needed to?
Precisely. It's like having a smoke alarm that's too sensitive. It keeps going off even when there's no real fire, and the only way to stop the noise is to remove all the batteries. But then you're left feeling vulnerable and unsafe. Jennifer was removing batteries from her life. Normal activities like letting Emma explore, accepting help from family, trusting her own parenting instincts.
I feel sick thinking about this. She was suffering, and I was telling people how impressed I was with her organization.
Barb, you couldn't have known. Postpartum OCD affects about 4 to 11% of new mothers, but it's often mistaken for good parenting because the behaviors look protective. Society tells us that good mothers worry constantly about their baby's safety. What we don't talk about is the line between healthy concern and pathological anxiety.
But why didn't she tell me? Why keep it secret?
Because of exactly what you just said, the shame. Jennifer was having thoughts about her baby being harmed, and in her mind, what kind of mother has those thoughts? She probably believed that if anyone knew, they'd think she was dangerous or unfit. Many women with postpartum OCD become convinced that their intrusive thoughts mean they're bad mothers, when actually these thoughts are a sign of how much they love their children.
So when she made me promise not to tell Mark,
She was protecting herself from what she saw as the ultimate threat, losing her baby. Women with postpartum OCD often isolate themselves because they're terrified that if they admit to these thoughts, someone will take their child away. The irony is that by not getting help, the condition often gets worse.
is this why she wouldn't let me help with Emma? She didn't trust anyone else?
It wasn't about trust in the normal sense. Her brain was telling her that only she could prevent these imagined catastrophes from happening. Letting you change a diaper or give a bottle meant relinquishing control, and for someone with OCD, losing control feels genuinely dangerous, even though logically they know you're perfectly capable.
Dr. Grant, I need to ask you something. When I saw all of this happening, when I started to worry, should I have said something then? Did my silence make it worse?
That's the question every family member asks, and here's what I want you and everyone listening to understand. What happened next in your story shows exactly why early intervention matters so much. So Barb, after understanding what Jennifer was going through, what did you decide to do?
Well, I knew I couldn't just pretend I hadn't seen what I'd seen, you know? But I also knew that if I approached her the wrong way, she'd shut me out completely. I spent that whole night thinking about how to help without making her feel like I was judging her or trying to take over.
That instinct was exactly right. When someone has postpartum OCD, direct confrontation often backfires because it triggers their defensive mechanisms. How did you approach her?
The next morning, I waited until Mark left for work, and I sat down with Jennifer while she was feeding Emma. I said, "Honey, I've been watching you, and I can see how hard you're working to keep Emma safe, but I'm worried that all this worry is exhausting you." I didn't use any medical terms or say she was sick. I just focused on how tired she looked.
And how did she respond?
At first, she got defensive. She said, "Mom, I'm fine. This is just what good mothers do." But then I said something that surprised even me. I told her, "Jennifer, when you were a baby, I used to check on you at night too. But if I had been checking every 20 minutes, I would have been too tired to take care of you during the day."
You made it about functionality rather than pathology. That's exactly what we recommend. You weren't telling her she was wrong. You were pointing out that her current approach wasn't sustainable.
Right. And then I said, "What if we could find a way for you to feel just as safe, but get a little more rest?" That's when she started crying again. She said, "Mom, I'm so tired, but every time I try to relax, my brain shows me horrible pictures of what could happen to Emma."
She was ready to admit the cost of her compulsions. What did you suggest?
I told her I wanted to help research some resources, maybe find someone who specialized in new mother anxiety. I didn't say mental health or OCD. I just said someone who helps new moms who worry a lot. I asked if she'd be willing to just talk to someone, not necessarily commit to anything.
That's perfect phrasing. For anyone listening who has a family member struggling with postpartum anxiety, That language, someone who helps new moms who worry, removes the stigma while still addressing the real issue. What happened next?
She agreed, but only if I helped her find someone, and only if I promised not to tell Mark until she was ready. So I spent the afternoon researching therapists in Denver who specialized in postpartum issues. I found this organization called Postpartum Support International that had a therapist directory.
Postpartum Support International is exactly the right resource. They have trained professionals who understand that postpartum OCD isn't about being a bad mother. It's about brain chemistry that's gone haywire after a major life change. Did Jennifer follow through?
She did. She made an appointment for the following week. But here's the thing. I could see her struggling with it every day. She'd pick up the phone to cancel, then put it down. She was terrified that if she told this therapist about her thoughts, they'd report her to child services.
That fear is incredibly common. Let me address this directly for anyone listening. Therapists who specialize in postpartum disorders understand that intrusive thoughts are symptoms, not intentions. They're not going to report a mother for having unwanted thoughts about her baby being harmed. That's exactly what postpartum OCD looks like.
I wish I'd known that then. I just kept reassuring her that getting help was brave, not dangerous. The day of her appointment, I offered to babysit Emma while she went. That was the first time she'd left Emma with anyone for more than 20 minutes.
How was that separation for her?
Brutal. She called me 3 times during the 1-hour appointment, but when she came back, something had shifted. She looked, I don't know, relieved. She said the therapist had told her that everything she described, the intrusive thoughts, the compulsions, the fear, was treatable, that she wasn't crazy or dangerous.
And that validation, being told that your experience has a name and a treatment, that's often the turning point. Did you see changes right away?
Not dramatic ones, but small shifts. The therapist had given her some techniques for managing the intrusive thoughts, something called response prevention. Instead of immediately sanitizing or checking on Emma when she had a scary thought, she was supposed to wait 5 minutes and remind herself that thoughts aren't facts.
That's cognitive behavioral therapy with exposure and response prevention, the gold standard treatment for OCD. Those 5-minute delays gradually retrain the brain to tolerate anxiety without acting on compulsions. How did Emma respond to these changes?
It was amazing. By the end of my visit, Jennifer let Emma spend 20 minutes on a clean blanket on the living room floor. Just 20 minutes, but Emma was rolling and reaching for toys in a way I hadn't seen before. And Jennifer, instead of hovering and sanitizing every toy Emma touched, sat nearby and just watched her daughter play.
Those 20 minutes on the floor were huge for both of them. But Barb, your role in this recovery was crucial. You didn't try to fix Jennifer yourself, but you also didn't ignore what you were seeing. How do you feel about the approach you took?
Dr. Grant, looking back, I think the most important thing I did was not try to talk her out of her feelings. You know, I didn't say you're being silly or babies are tougher than you think. I validated that she wanted to protect Emma, but I also helped her see that her current approach was hurting both of them.
That's exactly the balance families need to strike. You honored her intentions while addressing the methods. How is Jennifer doing now?
It's been 3 months since I left Denver, and the progress has been slow but real. She's still in therapy, and she started taking medication that her doctor prescribed. The 47 bottles are down to maybe 6 or 7 throughout the house. Emma spends time on the floor every day now, and Jennifer can watch her play without constantly sanitizing everything.
And their relationship?
It's beautiful to watch. Jennifer is actually enjoying being a mother instead of just surviving it. You know, she can hold Emma without immediately worrying about contamination. She even let Mark's parents babysit for 2 hours last month while she and Mark went to dinner. 6 months ago, that would have been impossible.
What about the intrusive thoughts? Are they completely gone?
No, and her therapist says they might never completely disappear. But Jennifer has learned to recognize them as symptoms, not reality. She'll call me sometimes and say, "Mom, my brain is showing me scary movies again, but I know that's just the OCD talking." The difference is, she doesn't let those thoughts control her behavior anymore.
That's recovery, not the absence of symptoms, but the ability to live a full life despite them. Barb, what would you want to say to other grandmothers or family members who might be seeing similar signs?
Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. But don't approach it like you're trying to fix or diagnose the person. I learned that it's not about having the right answers. It's about asking the right questions and being willing to help find professional support.
What were the right questions for you?
Instead of saying, "Why are you doing this?" I said, "How can I help you feel safer while getting more rest?" Instead of, "This is excessive," I said, "This looks exhausting." I focused on her well-being, not her behavior, and I think that made all the difference.
For anyone listening who recognizes these patterns in someone they love, what practical steps would you recommend?
First, educate yourself. I wish I'd understood postpartum mental health before I saw Jennifer struggling. Second, don't wait for them to ask for help. They probably won't. Third, offer specific support. Don't just say, "Let me know if you need anything." Say, "I'm going to research some therapists and send you 3 names," or "I'm coming over Saturday morning to help with laundry."
And if they resist help?
Be patient but persistent. Jennifer said no to help several times before she said yes. I think she needed to see that I wasn't going to judge her or take over, just support her in getting professional help. Sometimes people need to feel safe before they can feel brave enough to get help.
Barb, there are mothers listening right now who might recognize themselves in Jennifer's story. What would you want them to know?
That having scary thoughts about your baby doesn't make you a bad mother. It makes you a mother whose brain is trying to protect your child in a way that's backfired. Getting help isn't admitting defeat. It's choosing to give your child the mother you want to be instead of the mother your anxiety is forcing you to be.
And to the family members who are watching someone they love struggle?
Your loved one needs you to be brave when they can't be. They need you to see past their defenses to their pain. And they need you to believe that recovery is possible, especially when they don't believe it themselves.
Barb, thank you for sharing Jennifer's story and your journey as a grandmother learning to love in a new way. Your courage in speaking up quite literally saved your daughter's ability to bond with her child.
Thank you for helping people understand that postpartum mental health issues aren't character flaws. They're medical conditions that respond to proper treatment. If my story helps even one family get help sooner, then sharing it was worth it.
For anyone who needs immediate support, Postpartum Support International has a helpline at 1-944-4PPD. Remember, asking for help isn't giving up. It's giving your family the best chance at healing. This is Dr. Ellis Grant reminding you that Health SOS is about real people sharing real warnings to protect the families they love.